Growing up, I never fully understood why my sister, Cassie, got all the compliments. From the moment we were born, there was this invisible line drawn between us. Not by us, of course, but by the world around us. Cassie had lighter skin, a beautiful caramel tone that seemed to glow no matter what. I, on the other hand, had rich, deep brown skin, like my mother. I thought we were both beautiful in our own ways, but the world didn't seem to agree. I remember the day it first hit me. The day I realized that colorism wasn't just some abstract concept from a history book, but something that would shape how I saw myself. I must have been around 7, maybe 8. It was at a family reunion, and I was so excited to see my cousins, aunties, and uncles. I loved those gatherings because, for a while, I could forget about the outside world. In the bubble of family, I thought we were safe, that we belonged, that we were all the same. But that day was different. One of my older aunts, Auntie Dolores, pulled Cassie aside and began cooing over her like she always did. "Look at this beautiful girl," she said, her voice dripping with admiration. "You're going to break so many hearts one day. This skin, just like your grandma's. So perfect." I stood there, waiting for her to turn to me with the same warmth, with the same love, but she didn't. Her eyes barely flickered in my direction, and then she said something that would stay with me for years, something that cracked the foundation of how I saw myself. "Too bad your sister didn't get that good skin." I felt a sting, a slap that wasn't physical but burned just as much. My mother, who had overheard, pulled me aside, kissed my forehead, and told me not to listen to people like Auntie Dolores. She told me that I was beautiful too, in my own way, but her words, as comforting as they were meant to be, couldn't undo what I had just heard. From that day forward, I began to see myself through a different lens, through the lens of rejection. That wasn't the only time it happened. At school, it was worse. The kids on the playground weren't subtle about their preferences. They didn't know what colorism was, but they embodied it every day. Cassie made friends easily. The boys would chase her during recess, beg her to play tag with them. Me? I was the dark one, the one they ignored or made fun of when they had nothing better to do. I remember overhearing 2 boys talking one day. "Cassie's cute, but her sister, nah, she's too dark." I didn't say anything. I never did. I learned early on that speaking up wouldn't change their minds. Instead, I let the words carve their way into my self-esteem. I started to avoid mirrors. I couldn't stand the sight of my reflection. Every time I looked, all I could see was what everyone else saw. Someone who wasn't enough. Not light enough, not beautiful enough, not worthy enough. The saddest part was that this wasn't just coming from strangers. It was my own family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, who had unknowingly internalized these ideas and passed them on. I remember one night, sitting at the dinner table with my mother, father, and Cassie. My father was quiet, as usual. He rarely spoke about his feelings, but I had always sensed a distance between us. That night, he looked at Cassie and said, "You've got your mother's beauty, thank God." I don't think he meant to hurt me. In his mind, it was just a compliment to Cassie, but to me, it felt like a confirmation of everything I'd ever feared. I wasn't the beautiful one. I wasn't the one who would be loved or cherished. I was just there, in the background, forgotten. As I got older, the pain didn't fade. It deepened. I began to hate the very skin I was in. I would sit in the bathtub, scrubbing myself raw, hoping somehow that my skin would lighten, that I could wash away the shame. I spent hours online, looking up skin lightening creams, desperate to find a way to change who I was. And the most heartbreaking part? I began to resent Cassie. It wasn't her fault. She had done nothing wrong, but I couldn't help but feel that she had something I never would. Every time someone complimented her, it felt like a direct insult to me. We drifted apart. I pushed her away, creating a distance that neither of us could understand at the time. In high school, things got worse before they got better. The boys I liked never liked me back. They always seemed to prefer the girls with lighter skin, the ones who looked more like Cassie than like me. I tried to hide my insecurities by pretending I didn't care, by acting tough. But inside, I was crumbling. I began to isolate myself, sinking deeper into a pit of self-hate. It wasn't until I went away to college that I began to unpack the years of pain I had carried. In my freshman year, I met a girl named Amina. She was from Ghana, and her skin was as dark as night, yet she radiated a confidence I had never seen before. She wore bright colors that made her skin stand out even more, and she walked with her head held high, as if she knew a secret the rest of us didn't. One day, I gathered the courage to ask her how she could be so confident in a world that seemed to worship lighter skin. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "Why should I hate the skin that my ancestors fought for? Why should I let someone else's insecurity dictate how I feel about myself?" Her words shook something loose inside me. For so long, I had internalized the idea that I wasn't enough because of my skin color. But Amina made me realize that the problem wasn't with me, it was with the world that had been poisoned by colorism. That year, I started going to therapy. I had so much to unpack, so much pain to sift through. My therapist helped me understand that colorism was a symptom of something much bigger. A system designed to divide and conquer, to pit us against each other based on arbitrary standards. It wasn't my fault that I had been made to feel less than, but it was my responsibility to heal from it. Healing wasn't easy. It wasn't a straight path. There were days when I still looked in the mirror and felt that familiar pang of rejection, but I was learning to challenge those thoughts. I started to reclaim my beauty, to redefine it on my own terms. I began wearing clothes that made me feel powerful. I stopped hiding. I stopped letting other people's opinions dictate how I felt about myself. But the most important healing came within my family. I realized that in order to truly heal, I had to confront the colorism that had festered between us for years. I sat down with my parents one day and told them how much their comments had hurt me. It was one of the hardest conversations I'd ever had. My mother cried, saying she had no idea how deeply I had been affected. My father, usually stoic, looked down, ashamed. He apologized, though it took him a while to fully understand the weight of his words. Cassie and I had our own reckoning. I told her how much I had envied her, how much I had resented her for something that wasn't even her fault. She cried too, telling me that she had always admired my strength, my intelligence, and that she had felt guilty for the attention she received. In that moment, we began to bridge the gap that had divided us for so long. Colorism had wounded us, but it didn't have to define us. Slowly, we began to rebuild our relationship, one conversation at a time. We started to challenge the harmful ideas that had been passed down through generations, and in doing so, we reclaimed our unity as a family. Today, I look in the mirror and see beauty. Not the kind of beauty defined by society's standards, but a beauty that comes from within, from self-acceptance, from healing. I know now that my worth isn't tied to the shade of my skin. I am enough, just as I am. And as I continue on this journey of healing, I hold on to the hope that one day, all Black families will see the beauty in every shade, that we will heal from the wounds of colorism and reclaim the unity that has always been ours. Because beauty isn't just skin deep, it's the love we have for ourselves and for each other. And that love is powerful enough to heal generations. As I continued my journey, it became clear that healing was not a destination, it was a process. Therapy helped me unearth the layers of internalized pain, but it also revealed how deep-rooted colorism was in my psyche. My therapist and I talked about everything: my childhood, my relationship with Cassie, my parents' unintentional but painful words, and my experiences at school. It was during one of these sessions that my therapist introduced me to the concept of affirmations. At first, I was skeptical, standing in front of a mirror and repeating phrases like, "I am beautiful," "I am worthy," and "my skin is perfect as it is," felt awkward and uncomfortable. It felt like I was lying to myself. But my therapist urged me to continue, reminding me that changing negative self-talk took time and practice. So I did it every morning and every night. I stood there, staring at the reflection of a person I had spent years avoiding, and little by little, I began to believe those words. The next step in my healing journey was surrounding myself with people who uplifted me. I joined a student organization at my university that focused on empowering Black women. These women, who came from all shades, backgrounds, and experiences, became my tribe. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who didn't just tolerate my dark skin, but celebrated it. We had open discussions about colorism, about how it had affected each of us differently, and about how we could unlearn the toxic ideas society had ingrained in us. Amina, the friend who had initially helped me start my healing process, was a huge part of this. She introduced me to literature by Black authors, poets, and activists who wrote about self-love, beauty, and resilience. I devoured these books, soaking up every word, every piece of wisdom, reading about other people's journeys, people who had gone through similar struggles, made me feel less alone. It reminded me that I wasn't the only one who had battled with colorism, and that there was a way through it. But perhaps the most transformative part of my healing process came from confronting my family. My therapist encouraged me to have honest conversations with my parents, and while I had already opened up to them about how much their words had hurt, there was still work to be done. My mother, in particular, struggled with her own insecurities about her darker skin, and it wasn't until we began talking about her experiences growing up that I fully understood how colorism had been passed down like a silent inheritance. We both started to heal together. We talked about the messages we had absorbed, about how we could break the cycle for future generations. My father, who had always been quiet on the matter, began to listen more, to understand that his compliments to Cassie weren't just harmless praise, they had come at a cost to me. Slowly, we started to create a new family dynamic, one where beauty wasn't tied to skin tone, where love wasn't conditional. Cassie and I also continued to rebuild our relationship. There were still moments of tension, but they were fewer and far between. We learned how to communicate, how to support each other instead of competing. I stopped seeing her as the embodiment of what I lacked and started seeing her for who she truly was. My sister, my blood, someone who had always wanted the best for me. The final piece of my healing came from an unexpected source. One day, while browsing a local bookstore, I stumbled across a book titled Beyond Skin Deep: Healing from Colorism and Reclaiming Unity in Black Families. The title immediately caught my attention, and something inside me urged me to buy it. From the very first page, I knew this book would be different. It didn't just talk about colorism from an academic perspective. It addressed the emotional scars, the family dynamics, the generational trauma that I had experienced firsthand. This book was like a guidebook for my soul. It offered practical steps for healing, not just within myself but within my family and community. It talked about how to break the silence, how to create conversations around colorism, and how to reclaim our unity as Black families. The exercises in the book, things like writing letters to my younger self, engaging in family discussions about colorism, and creating rituals of self-love, were game changers. I started implementing these steps in my life, and for the first time, I felt like I had a roadmap to true healing. If you're watching this video and you've struggled with colorism the way I did, I want to tell you that there is hope. Healing is possible. You don't have to carry the weight of other people's opinions forever. I highly recommend getting a copy of Beyond Skin Deep: Healing from Colorism and Reclaiming Unity in Black Families. This book transformed my life in ways I never thought possible, and I believe it can do the same for you. It's not just a book, it's a tool for reclaiming your self-worth, your beauty, and your place in this world. You deserve that healing, and this book can help guide you there.